Strachan Van Til Studios on the campus of Purdue Northwest. I'm Jim Diedlow. We are in the community programming initiative phase of what we're doing here, and in that phase, folks come in and put down a couple shekels, and we keep the lights on here. And we just heard from the Downtown Hammond Council, and we're going to move into another one. We're going to talk about computers and the internet and privacy and security and ransomware and a whole bunch of stuff like that. If you'd like to call in, it's 219-845-1100. Guard Street, Vincent Mazza, welcome in.
Good morning. Good to be here.
Guard Street is what?
Guard Street, we're a cybersecurity company, and we focus on proactively assisting businesses, enterprises, and consumers to protect their data. So from a proactive perspective, we provide the tools that they need to protect themselves. We also provide services and assistance.
And your position with Guard Street?
I'm CEO, founder.
CEO and founder, and how long have you guys been around?
2014.
2014.
Like a blink of the eye. I can't believe the years have gone by.
It is. It's hard to believe that you've been around that long, because I know that you work somewhere else, right? You've been in this field for a long time, right?
I have, yes.
So let's go through it. Guard Street, you guys could go to the website. It was at guardstreet.com and check it out. There is a kind of a retail side to it, and you can sign up as low as, I think your lowest ticket, $7.99 a month, right?
Yep.
And then you can have them looking at all of your internet and privacy and security. Hi, Chancellor. How are you? And but there's a business side to this, and that's kind of what we're going to talk about today. Is a lot of small businesses and medium-sized and even large businesses that listen to WJOB and watch these videos and so forth. So let's go right to it. On the business side, in terms of internet, privacy, and security, what are the three things you do?
Well, from a business perspective, every business really needs cyber liability insurance these days. You know, you just can't operate without having the concern of being hacked, your brand, your customers' data being impacted. So everybody needs to have this. So what we do is we help companies to figure out how much cyber liability insurance they really need, because nobody really knows. So we provide an algorithm that is customized to the business based on your industry, your business, and other variables. We also help businesses to determine how much technology is too much. CIOs, chief technology officers, they're awesome, but you've also got to determine, am I overspending? And so we help companies in that regard to determine how much they should have. The second thing that we do for businesses is we provide the technology. So the vulnerability scanning that every business really needs, we provide. We also provide the services around it. So if something happens, there's forensic recovery of your data and so forth. So we provide that service. And then for brands, we also scour the internet and help to protect brands from bad guys. So examples, domain squatting or spoofing, and others essentially playing tricks on your customers to have them log into their site and making it look like it's yours. We'll find that those types of situations, and we'll take it down. So those are the areas from a business perspective that we focus on.
We're talking to Vince Mazza. We're talking about guardstreet.com and more of a business angle. We've done these shows with Vince before, and we've talked a little bit more on the individual privacy level. But if you got a business, you're going to want to listen to this stuff, because it's kind of weird that you have to think about in terms of people wanting to harm you, almost like internet terrorists, but they're out there, and they're out there to make a buck off you. So
Absolutely.
Let's start right now with the cyber liability insurance. How much do you need? Some people don't buy any.
I know, and insurance agents are required to present it. And so when they present it and you turn them down, you've got to sign off on that. So, you know, if you have something to lose, your client's data, an enormous amount of your customer data, you really should have the cyber liability insurance.
All right. So,
and for reasons like ransomware, you know, where cyber liability insurance, you can purchase it but make sure that you have extortion coverage because of ransomware.
Let's talk about ransomware. We had obviously the big Strachan Ventil right here. We're in their studios right now, and there was a pretty public, closing down of the stores for a while. There's a big hospital out of the Indianapolis area. They go around to the various conferences. I've been to see their presentation, how they handled the ransomware, how much they paid. They worked with the FBI to be the poster person about how you handle it from a public relations standpoint, how you handle it from a technological standpoint, and then once you pay the ransomware and you get your stuff back, how do you go forward and protect? Yeah. Sometimes they don't give it back. But,
right.
All right. So ransomware works how?
Okay. So ransomware is a software that's planted in your company, and it could be planted through a phishing email or some other way. So an employee might press a URL or an attachment for an email they shouldn't have opened, as an example. And as soon as it's planted, it goes into effect, and it blocks you from having access to your files. You're just sitting there working, and now you can't access your files. Or it'll block you from getting into your company, any of your devices, any of your devices. And so what happens is a message will pop up, and it will provide specific instructions. I've now held your data hostage, and it's designed to extort your money at that point. And typically it's paid through, or the ransom is cryptocurrency. About 70% of the time it's Bitcoin. And the message typically has deadlines. So, hey, you've got X amount of time to pay this much in the cryptocurrency. And if you miss that deadline, the ransom goes up and up and up until a point where you no longer have access to your data.
So somebody comes in and takes over your data, and they say, around how much do they ask for?
So small businesses are actually everybody's vulnerable. But for the typical small business, it's about $2,500. It's it's enough of a number where it'll hurt, but it's a small enough number where it's payable. But with some organizations, we were talking earlier about the city of Atlanta. That's not a small number. I mean, that's where you get into millions. So, last year, the cost of ransomware was about $75 billion. It's a big industry, and it's big business. You hear more about breaches than you do about the ransomware. A breach is the intentional or unintentional release of an organization's data. And 47% of the time it's malicious, 53% of the time it's negligence by the company or employees. And those are, an organization is required to report that. Now, ransomware, because the information never is actually stolen from your business, organizations are not required to report it. It's a huge issue, and any statistics out there about the growth of ransomware are understated, because you really don't know exactly how big an issue this is.
And then a lot of times people are just, they don't want you to know that they've had that, and that can be a public relations
nightmare
problem. Now let's talk about that end of it. So you have ransomware. Let's say it's a smaller company and they have to pay, let's say they pay 10 grand, and they pay the 10 grand. What do they do then?
Well, once you pay, so there's pros and cons to paying. So once you pay, the payers are 50% more likely to be hit again. So most cybersecurity experts and the FBI would say, don't pay it. But also realize that, you've got to do a cost-benefit analysis. So how much pain is it to your business? And better yet, have you prepared for it? There's a lot of...
backed it up and all that
Exactly,
stuff.
Exactly. So if you've backed it up, you're going to be secure. Don't pay it. But again, if it's a hospital or, literally a life and death situation, either the hospital is prepared for this situation and they can function or they need to make a decision on whether or not they need to pay for it. And what's really common now with bigger organizations is they have a reserve of Bitcoin specifically because of ransomware.
All right, let's talk about that. Talking about cyber liability insurance, we're talking with Vince Mazza. He is the CEO of Guard Street. Check him out at guardstreet.com. You can go there and you can log on and you'll be able to buy your own coverage for your own personal. We're talking more for the businesses around here. There's obviously we have a lot of clients here at WJOB. So I wanted him to hit this stuff. So cyber liability insurance is you got to know how much to buy.
Right.
So how do you know how much to buy?
Nobody knows how much really to buy. It takes, we run an algorithm specific to our client's business. We look at their business, we look at their industry, we look at other variables, and we have the app running in the background for a period of time. And at the end of that, the algorithm will essentially indicate how much you need specific to your business, because most people will overpay for it.
So this cyber liability insurance will pay that ransom?
If you set it up right. Great point, because you could have cyber liability insurance, but if you don't have the extortion coverage, you could be out of luck there. So you've got to make sure if you get that coverage that it does have the extortion.
So you guys hearing that? I think that's an important point right there, is make sure that it is, the extortion part is in there. Now, let's talk about some of these larger companies. Are they setting money aside for possible extortion?
Many of them do. Many of them do. Now, the right thing to do is to be proactive. I mean, that's what Guard Street is about, is helping businesses advising them to do the right things and also providing the services that allow them to do it. So you don't have to spend a lot of money to be protected from ransomware. Bigger the company, the more you spend, of course, but there's simple things that any business should do. First and foremost is backing up. You should back up your data locally and in the cloud. The intention of a malicious ransomware is to take your business offline. So if you're backing up, you've got a good shot of surviving that ransomware attack. The other thing is you should have the basics in terms of antivirus, anti-ransomware, anti-malware. You should have those things running in your business. You should have a monthly scan. Guard Street, we provide scanning software. It's not an expensive thing to have. You'll be able to see every month where are your vulnerabilities, and you can fix those proactively. One thing that's very important is knowing what your crown jewels are and protect your crown jewels. Every business has them. They're different by the business. So your crown jewels might be your customer database. So you will take extra efforts, put extra focus on protecting those crown jewels. So, password managers, having a good password management policy, who has access, and are there multiple ways to get at, is there multi-factor authentication to get in? And the other thing that's very important, we talked about the cyber liability insurance, but you've also got to protect your brand online. There's everything inside your business, where the ransomware can be dropped, but then there's bad guys that are, if you're a digital brand, they're out there, trying to take advantage of your customers and your brand.
All right, guys, we've gone through enough. Anybody has any questions, 219-845-1100. Vince is the guy to ask about your business, and if you got any questions, now's the time. Gosh, I want to get into the brands. That is, that I see that a lot. We're branding here, and we're doing our digital branding. But let's take some phone calls first. 219-845-1100. Ryan, do we have one? Yeah, okay, and let's go to that right now on 845-1100, and on line one is Dennis. Let's go to Dennis on line one. Dennis, how are you, my friend?
Hey, guys, good morning. My son's looking to pursue a computer science degree in college, and
Awesome.
The people there are telling him that network security really is the biggest, hottest area of computer science to go into right now. Maybe not as glamorous. Just curious what your thoughts on it and what the pay might be in that industry.
Stay on the line, Dennis.
Sure.
So in the Chicago, first of all, that's great for your son. I love that, and trust me, this is an area that is only growing. And just to toss out another statistic, the ransomware side of things is in a couple of years is predicted to be a $6 trillion problem. So it's definitely the security side is where the growth is at. I will tell you, in the Chicago area today for security, cybersecurity oriented positions, there is a shortage of about 14,000 people today. So, in terms of, when he gets out of school, I think that, he will be able to command a fair amount of money. It depends on which area he goes into, but if he pursues this route, that's a great route for him.
Are they offering this kind of, I know you go into computer science or IT right here at Purdue Northwest, there's a lot of engineering, there's a lot of building the software, there's even some app development and that kind of stuff. Honestly, I've not heard of specific, and I'm in my MBA program right now. I don't think they offer a course in cybersecurity. I mean, are they offering directed education at this stuff now?
Absolutely, and that's becoming more prevalent. So when you go through MBA school, you're typically required to take some IT courses and so forth. So there's a chapter or two in books on that. But Northwestern now has a program. I came across this earlier in the year and actually sat down and looked at it closely. It's a good program that Northwestern offers, and I think that this is happening. Other schools are looking at that as part of their curriculum.
Dennis, the kid any good with computers?
He's better at it than I am, but that's not much of a qualifier. So, but do you find that people are doing their solutions in-house, or are their providers mostly providing custom solutions to the businesses that need it, or is it off-the-shelf type stuff? What's the biggest area of those three, do you think?
Well, there's a lot of both. I think for the smaller business, there's more off-the-shelf solutions. From like our vulnerability scan for small businesses looks at 82,000 pieces of data. You don't have that's customized to anybody. But the bigger the business, definitely the more customized it becomes. So depending on the industry sector, the more customized the solution will be.
I'm going to follow up on that. Dennis, I think you touched on this a little bit. You guys are a third party. You're going to come in and you're going to look at folks secure, how secure are they? How much how much protection of the brand? How much insurance do they have? How do they handle their ransomware? You're going to run the algorithm in the background. But are some people not going to a firm and trying to bring it into their company and hire those people so that they don't have to pay somebody else?
Absolutely. It is extremely common for big companies with an IT group to actually have a separate security group, and they'll hire, instead of having a virtual chief information security officer, that guy's going to be on site. It might be a contractor, but that's going to be a full-time person in their company or team. So the bigger the company, the more in-house. For a mid-size company, they might have a point person inside, but they'll definitely source it out. Even if you have a company or you have a team inside your company, you're still going to need to source certain elements. You can't be a specialist in everything. As an example, with the branding, even forensics, when something happens, you've got to work with an outside team to help you step by step by step to determine how to get your data back or how to address the situation.
All right, man. Hey, Dennis, yeah, that's a lot of info, but, I just, anecdotally, yes, on going into the cybersecurity field, if he has an interest.
Yeah, right. It's not a glamorous area. You don't have a shiny new app on your phone to show for it, but I think it is probably becoming quickly one of the most important areas of computer networking. So,
Dennis,
right,
your son
care,
will
guys.
be gainfully employed.
All right,
keep it up.
Talk
Good
to you.
info,
Thanks,
guys. Thanks.
Thanks a lot, Dennis. I mean, I compare it to when I left the Board of Trade in 2004. I had a number of people say, hey, my kid's coming up. Can you get him a job? I said, you know what? I'm out. I don't talk to anybody. I can't get him a job. Well, now they're in school. What do you think? And I said, you know what? If they really want to get employed immediately, they need to go into compliance.
Yes.
And not everybody wants to go into compliance, but there's never enough compliance officers for all of these companies. So compliance and cybersecurity, especially if they can maybe go and get the undergrad in cybersecurity or something and then go and get an MBA that specializes in compliance, you'll have a job the rest of your life.
Yep.
Hey, 219-845-1100. Let's go to George on line 599. George, how are you?
Okay. Hey, listen, back in the day when we used to get a lot of viruses and stuff, and we'd get the notice either through media or otherwise, you'd get an email, beware of this or that virus. I found it uncanny that many times after, all too often, as a matter of fact, I'd also get a notice from a virus security outfit, hey, protect yourself against it, protect yourself against these viruses. I always had the feeling that somebody was seeding their own market. Have you found, or what is the potential for abuse of the very thing that you're talking about for somebody, say, to generate their own and seed their own market by, maybe breaking and entering, maybe not taking anything, but just enough to scare people so that it drums up business? Because you were talking about this increase from the millions and billions into the trillions in the coming days, and I just wondered, can you identify or can you speak to, or you don't have to mention any names, just like I'm not mentioning any names, but it was a definite phenomenon for me anyway. Maybe I'm paranoid, but what is the potential for abuse by people who insure against these things, or in terms of people, again, generating or rainmaking, so to speak?
Sure. So, great question. I think there's a few ways to look at that. On one hand, that's really good captive marketing on behalf of the antivirus company. Any time that there's a major breach, there's a public situation, that's also a good time to market. So, what, from a capitalistic perspective, good for those companies to do that. But George, on the other side of it, could something have been planted and so forth? I can't point specifically to any scenarios where that's happened, but I would not take that off the table.
That's what I wanted to hear. Thank you, sir.
George, it sounds, I've seen that too, and it looks opportunistic. But also, if you have had a virus and you've had some problems on your personal computer, it seems like the virus software has gotten better in the last couple of years. Would you agree with that?
It has.
Yeah, it's definitely got way better. I mean, you still got to do your updates and so forth.
I think that's why ransomware is increasing, because the virus protection has become so much better. Now, I may be wrong, but I'm just saying.
All right, man. Thanks a lot. We're going to talk a little bit about that. We're talking with Vince Mazza. If you want to call him, 219-845-1100. He's with Guard Street. We're talking about businesses protecting themselves and responding, almost kind of like disaster preparedness on a scale of man-made or natural disasters. You kind of have to have the same thing: prepare, respond, recover, and you have all of those parts here with what Guard Street does for businesses. I want to talk about the brands.
Sure.
And let's talk about this. WJOB. I don't own that. I don't know WJOB.com, and the guy wants like $5,000 for it. I won't pay it. So I've got to go with WJOBnetwork.com or WJOB 1230 we've used in the past. But once in a while, I will log on there, and I will type in a wrong direction. And, we're pretty active on Facebook and so forth. So it'll go to one of these sites where it says, hey, enter this sweepstakes, and then they ask for a bunch of information. Now, we're very small. I've only had that a couple of times. But if you type in like McDonald's or you type in CNN, that kind of stuff, you got a lot of these people coming around from the outside trying to get your fat finger, or just for some reason you got there and typed in the wrong thing. What do you do about that?
Well, from a business perspective, that is so common. An example of domain squatting,
That's what it's called, domain squatting?
So
okay.
You've got WJOB Network, okay? And somebody purchases WJOB Network with a C instead of a K at the end. And now they replicate your site. So it actually says WJOB using your logo, and it's enter to win. And so your listeners are going to the site because they want to look up all the great information that your site has. or watch other shows and so forth. And so they will enter the information thinking that it's a legitimate sweepstakes, and they're now a target for cyber criminals.
So what does your software do?
So what we provide, we look at 150 million sites on the surface web. So you go to Google, that's an example of the surface web. The deep web, so a step further that's not as publicly available, and the deep dark web, where nothing good happens. The deep dark web is where hackers try to sell data that they acquired through a breach.
That does exist?
It does exist. Well, the early.
I mean, it sounds like, like Kaiser Sose. You don't really know who it is or what it is, and we hear about it in congressional hearings to reading about it in the Wall Street Journal, but it does exist.
Absolutely. So earlier this year, you and I were talking about the mother of all breaches. 773 million email addresses were found in a popular hacker forum for sale. So yes, it definitely exists. So we will be looking at those sites and social media on behalf of our client. The client will provide us the information about their brand, and should we find infractions, we've got a terminal an app where you can see, here's the 15 different things today, and the client will determine that's okay, no, that's not right, and then we've got a takedown service. So literally, we'll go through the legal process, the cease and desist orders, to ensure that the brand is protected.
Can you find these people?
And we can find those people. Most of the time.
Most of the time. Yeah. Sometimes it's a little bit circuitous, but you can eventually get there. We're talking to Vince Mazza. Vince, anything else you want to hit before we go?
I did want to share that we've got a lot of tips that are available free. You can send us an email at support@guardstreet.com or give us a call at 1-844-436-7282, and we'll send tips for your business. And
say that number again,
1-844-436-7282. One more time, 1-844-436-7282, or support@guardstreet.com. It's free. We'll send out tips for your business. And then for the consumers out there, we do offer identity theft protection with proactive tools, and it's what you need from an identity theft protection. And we've got a 30% off for life, compliments of you, Jed. So it's JED30 is what you would type in, and you get 30% off for life.
Yeah, if you go to Guard Street and you want to get it, it's I think the lowest one's $7.99. There's some other packages. I'm a little higher on that, but JED30, it takes off 30%, and that helps anybody in this day and age. He's Vince Mazza. You can check him out at guardstreet.com. We'll have some more of these shows later today. If you're just joining us on the radio and you're driving around, we put out a whole bunch of good stuff about how to protect your business and how to recover, and some of the little tips you need, how much insurance you can buy, and how to protect your brand on the internet. More of a business-related show. So all you got to do is go to Amazon, Apple, or Roku, and you'll see it up there, and you can watch it in your living room when you get home from work. Or if you want to watch it on your phone today, all you got to do is go to Facebook Live and look for the keyword Vincent Mazza, M-A-Z-Z-A, and you'll see it in our list of many videos there at WJOB.1230 on Facebook. Vince, thanks for coming in, man.
Thanks, Jed.
All right, guys, that'll do it on the voice and face of the region.
For a fast and friendly car wash, go to Easy Clean Car Wash. Open 7 days.